Hello, DelusionDispeller, back again. I've been a life coach for about 4 years now. Been helping people longer than that. If I can do anything to help you, please write me at DelusionDispeller@gmail.com. And I'm going to be talking more on Scientology. This is some information that I came up with years ago when I had another website, which I will post the link to it. Maybe somebody will be able to get into it. I don't know. It's a pretty old one. But I have lots of information about cults and fringe groups and religions and stuff on this website that I had studied and learned about. So here we go. I had seen some interviews of Tom Cruise on television, and that's when I decided to do some research about Scientology. A really good depiction of this type of deceived mindset that some Scientologists have is on the Truman Show movie. That's definitely a really good depiction of that. It may even be kind of based on some kind of cultic practice, as far as I know. Alright, Scientology began with something called Dianetics. And what's interesting is, when I was a little kid in the library, I saw this book on Dianetics, and I was fascinated with it. I remember picking it up, opening it up, and going, what on earth does any of this mean? I did not understand any of it. L. Ron Hubbard was a science fiction writer originally, which is probably why I didn't understand it, because I really didn't understand the ins and outs of science fiction, though I was interested in things like the Twilight Zone and Outer Limits and things like that. But I didn't understand this book at all, so I just ended up putting it back on the shelf. But I remember I had seen it several times after that. I think my mom was reading it at one point. It was a big thing back in the day. I was born in the 60s and pretty much grew up through the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So, yeah, it's pretty much around the time that I first heard of Dianetics. There's a belief that they have that you can erase pain and you're unconscious, and then you'll receive the state of clear, which means improved memory or no memories and no reactive mind. There's a registrar. You have to pay the money to them. These are the reggies that I told you about. You have to pay money to them to help you achieve the next level. There's a lot of secrecy that surrounds the fact that you'll be paying for every level after that. And you'll be seen as defective if you admit to having any faults. So, yeah. You're supposed to be a fine oiled machine that doesn't have problems. That's kind of the idea. Let's see. If you try to question, you have to go to what's called cramming so they can fix you, which means getting even more involved in the books and the materials to make sure you're a good Scientologist and that you're up to par with what they want you to be at. You're not allowed to ever skip over a word that you read in the manuals. You have to look up any word that you don't understand in the dictionary. Past lives, I already talked about that. That's a belief in the Scientology teachings. They pretty much have an attitude of, we'll never betray your faith in us as long as you are one of us. Now, if you're not one of them, you can imagine the outcome of that. There is an us and them mentality. This is present in a lot of churches in general, not just Scientology. I went to a church years ago, which incidentally kicked me out ultimately, who had this us and them mentality. They told us that it was the end times. We were supposed to store food and protect each other, but don't worry about those people out there, because if they don't want to accept the Lord the way we have, they're not going to be saved anyway. So just be glad that you're in with us, because, you know, basically there's no hope for them anyhow. Especially your parents, your families, whatever. Because if they speak against you, then they're not one of us. Us and them mentality. So if you're not a Scientologist, then forget you. The Guardian's office is run by L. Ron Hubbard's wife, or it was. She broke into the home of a woman who wrote a Scientology exposing book. And she tried to get the woman thrown into prison. Well, L. Ron Hubbard was going to let his wife take the flak for breaking into the home of the woman, saying, well, this was her. This wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. So he basically threw his wife under the bus when it came down to it. There's 3 main levels of Scientology. There's a training side, there's an auditing side, and there's the Sea Org. I believe those are the 3 main levels. Training side is the listener or the counselor. Auditing side is when you air the things that you've done wrong and all the regrets that you have. Scientology actually replaced the Dianetic hotline number with the mental health number on some television stations. So if you called for mental health help, you may have been getting Scientologists, which is kind of interesting to me. L. Ron Hubbard was totally against mental health help, yet he died with mental health drugs in his body. So go figure that one. I'm not sure what this means. Narconon, I think that's something through Scientology. I don't know if that's the same thing as Narcotics Anonymous, but it helps people get off drugs by getting them into Scientology. Cramming helps for criminals to get out of their criminal behaviors and into Scientology. So these are kind of underground organizations, I guess you could say. The belief in Scientology is that the way to happiness... Oh, where did it go? Sorry about that, guys. My computer's jumping all over. In and of itself is not bad. Similar to the Ten Commandments. They practice a lot of what seems to be goodwill towards men type stuff, but there's a shadiness attached to it. For instance, there's well-known people in a town that are targeted to cooperate with Scientology. They hook up with other organizations. They call them front organizations to rope people in. So, like, there may be doctors that are Scientologists, and because the person's going to the doctor, they start talking to them about Scientology. They're like, well, my doctor's involved in it. It's got to be a good thing, you know. So it's a front organization. There's a lot of schools that are hooked to Scientology. This is kind of different now than it used to be, I think, or maybe than it is now. I'm not sure which way they went with this. But before there were front organizations that were outside the buildings of Scientology, I almost think it sounds like, from what I researched, that Scientology has almost become more hidden and underground than it used to be. So they don't use actual doctors outside of Scientology. Now the doctors are within the group and they keep them in there. So you could do some research and find out on that for me. Okay, basic, simple beliefs of Scientology. We talked about the E-meter, so I won't go into that. But OT3 was an evil warlord whose name Scientologists are forbidden to ever speak. And I believe that is Xenu. He lived years ago. He was trying to handle overpopulation, so he flew people into DC-8s, dropped them into volcanoes, and blew them all up, and then implanted them with pictures of Jesus, church, Christian things, and then they connected to us so that we have to go into sessions, auditing sessions, to get rid of them. You can believe what you want about that. But that's basically their belief, that you don't find out till you get like to the Sea Organ, like higher up in the company, in the Scientology. Scientologists will actually drug people, some of them, and mentally brainwash them to the point of insanity if they ever start catching on to the truth about things. And they'll be relentless about that. They'll deprive you of sleep, food, whatever it takes. And like I said, this is not all Scientologists. This is some of the more crooked, twisted ones, and things that I've learned. They will take publications and actually alter the words in them so that they don't go against Scientology beliefs. They do believe in an afterlife. When L. Ron Hubbard was asked, what can we do to help the poor people, his response was, we'll get them next time. Meaning we'll catch up with them in the next lifetime. So any public deeds Scientology does is probably just for publicity to help people learn about Scientology. Anyway, so that's what I found out about Scientology. Give or take a bunch of things, but that's the basics of it. Do I believe that it's kind of a narcissistic thing? I think any group or cult or sect or bunch of people can become very narcissistic and very controlling. And yes, I think there are some people in Scientology, especially in the higher up levels, that use it as a control thing and have used it selfishly to abuse people, manipulate people, steal from people, defame people, ruin their lives, ruin their businesses, and just really mess them up. So anyway, that's my thoughts on Scientology. Please add your own. As always, if I can help you, my name is DelusionDispeller, and I am reached at DelusionDispeller@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. As always, keep your eyes open. Keep moving forward. Love y'all. Have a great day.